I'm Dave Duncan with Northwest Tech Show, joined today by Ryan Rhoades.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good to have you back, man.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for those tips on those iOS apps.
Absolutely.
I've been having a blast with the video effects and Video Star, and of course the serious ones like Pixelmator and the drawing one. What was that?
Paper.
There's Paper.
Paper, InkFlow, Procreate.
Procreate.
Yeah.
That was the biggie.
Yeah.
Good
That's
stuff.
one of the best one. And actually, just the other day, there's a company that released an app called Enlight, Enlight. Similar to Procreate in the sense of having a lot of control over your layers and things like that whenever you're adding different types of photos and wanting to mix them together. But there's so much. Yeah, it's a paid one. It's
Lightrix Limited.
Yeah.
So that was the one thing. When I was searching for this stuff, a lot of things had overlaps in their titles. So I was just like, from now on, I'm going to, like, as much as possible, I'm going to say the maker of it too, because otherwise it's hard to figure it out. Yeah. But Enlight by Lightrix Limited. And so what's this application do?
This one is one of the most user-friendly iOS apps that I've come across for photo editing. Not just because it's really easy to use, but also because there's so many things you can do with it. There's so much detail that you can really zoom in at a very, very high level and really intricately edit your photos and combine photos. And so, for example, if for some reason you decided that you wanted to take a picture of yourself in front of a green screen and, I don't know, suddenly have a basketball for a head or something, and then put eyes
for example,
and then put eyes on the basketball and then like your mouth
and go Wilson.
You could do that with apps like Enlight and some of these apps on here where you're able to just have complete control over your photos. There's also apps.
So that implies that they have a bunch of little kind of gadgets, little sub-images that are available to grab and use.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and so
that's the difference from a lot of drawing programs where you have to do everything from scratch. You got to import every piece. You got to knock out the background with an alpha channel.
Yeah. And so with this one, a lot of it is very, very simple controls where you can swipe left and right to select whatever type of effect or feature that you're trying to edit, and then you swipe up and down. I mean, it's like a child could use it, honestly.
That's kind of the iPad way, right?
Right, and it's been great though because it's not
even a child could make a really good income.
Exactly, and so if you're just playing Angry Birds, you're losing money. You're leaving money on the table.
You know how you have to pay for the eagle to come in and nuke the level? Yeah. Well, you could make some money using the iPad.
You could design that eagle. You could have designed that eagle.
That was one thing that really kind of fired my imagination was you were talking about how, if you could go back, you would just, it would have been even more of a no-brainer to get that iPad in the first place, just because, it can be a money machine if you learn to use all these different apps and feed the output of one into the other, because it's almost like, I don't know, have you messed around with Unix at all? Mm-mm. The fundamental idea of Unix, one of them for programs, and it was all command line stuff back in the day, but it was a whole bunch of tiny commands, and then they supported a pipe character and standard input and standard output. So you could do all these very customized things simply by routing the output of one program into the next simple program, which went to the next one, and then you just 5 seconds later, you have a composition that does what it is you want to do, and you didn't have to write any code.
Right, and that's why I use the iPad the way that I do, because you can, especially like when you're taking a base photo, like if we took a photo here right now in front of a green screen, there's so much you can do with that. And even if you're taking a picture just with your family or in front of a plain wall or a landscape photo, I mean, there's so much at your fingertips that people simply aren't aware of, and largely because the app developers of a lot of these apps are basically working out of their basements or out of their apartment or something, because they have a great idea, but they're not the greatest at marketing and getting the word out about what it is that they do. And so one of the things that I do in my business is I'm constantly looking for these kinds of things. One, because they're a tax write-off, so that's great. And two, because it really enables my workflow to be much more simple. So I can take a base photo and then take it through one app, save what I did on there, and then take that photo into another app, and then take all of that final product into a video, and then I could add some music that I've made. So there's so much you can do multimedia wise, which is why I recommend people get the 128 gigabyte version, because the 16 gigabyte iPad, if you're going to do any kind of media work at this point, it's kind of worthless.
As soon as you think there's a chance you can make money with this, then just going for the maximum is a no-brainer.
Right, exactly. It's such a regrettable decision to buy the thing and then realize 2 weeks in, oh, my space is already full.
Yeah. Now, for different reasons, it's regrettable to get the 16 gigabyte versions.
I'm sorry?
It's a regrettable decision to get the 16 gigabyte versions under any circumstances, just because the when they came out with Retina display, all the resources quadrupled in size.
Exactly.
For programs, so all the programs at least doubled in size overall.
Right. And Apple says that they're getting better at it, but it's still, if all they did was put in an SD card or a mini SD card reader, but that's kind of the Apple way to be stingy on those things.
Yeah. So upgrade that iPad.
Yeah. This is Apple's giving us no money yet.
It's called
for
trading
this.
it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did. By the way, Apple Care got some upgrades. Yeah, so that's
going in the right direction.
Go in the right direction. Okay, so what are some other fun applications we can do on here?
Sure. One of the ones that I've been using a lot recently is called Launchpad. I think we talked about it last time.
That was the music one, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the music one. And I've actually been in touch with their development team over the last couple of weeks.
Not under the best of circumstances.
Yeah, not under the best of circumstances.
I saw your video where you're saying, so I bought the new Launchpad and it doesn't work with Launchpad.
Yeah, it doesn't yet. It doesn't yet. So I will say that I spoke with them, and they're
That's by Novation.
Yes. Yeah. And they're working on improving that. And
they say, I'm sorry, Ryan.
Kind of, but it was a very good conversation.
Good.
And I just told him, I took the video down, because basically, for those who don't know, I made a video essentially saying, hey, I bought this $200 product and it doesn't work with the app of the same name. So I only did it to get their attention and draw their attention to the fact that their marketing materials were basically communicating something. It just simply wasn't true. And it got their attention. I talked with them. They're working with me behind the scenes to make the app better, and that's really what it's about.
Call that improving things for everybody.
Right. Absolutely.
Them too, really, because long term, putting a product out that leaves people really unhappy, even if they go, okay, fine, whatever, I'll just do whatever I'll buy all this other stuff that I need to make this thing work, but they're never going to be really happy with you again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so kudos to Launchpad Innovation for really stepping up in the customer service department on there, because it's a really awesome company. It's an awesome app, and they make incredible products, and they kind of help eliminate the barrier to entry for producing some kind of creative thing. And I love whenever apps do that, because I don't feel threatened, at least not anymore. I used to feel threatened whenever some of these apps would come out, because as a graphic designer, it's like so many people...
It felt like it was undercutting what you were doing.
Exactly. But it's not so much the tools as how the person uses them and the experience that goes into that. And so it's a really, really cool thing to see the barrier to helping people who don't even necessarily feel like they're creative create something that they can look back and be like, wow, I actually legit made that. And that's a really cool experience to be able to help people.
For the most part, these are going to be people that would not have gone out and spent $1,000 on a designer.
Right, of course.
It's like, I'm doing a lemonade stand or something.
Right.
But hey, if I can do my own promotional video and get all the people at my school involved, oh, that's pretty funny. Mm-hmm. That's good stuff. Now back to that, your company is Reformations Design?
Reformation Designs, yeah. There's
Reformation singular
Designs, yeah. Okay. And I just recently created a short link, because I can often get tired of repeating myself and having people spell it out and stuff. So if people go to reformdesigns.co, it'll forward to
.co, so it's the British one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so but it's also reformationdesigns.com. Working on a relaunch for the site still. It's going to be a big one, but I'm really excited for what's coming. So,
well, but yeah, and as a professional designer, I got to think that there is a certain impact that you can have from, having a first draft of a design ready to go by the time the client comes back from the bathroom.
right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's like you're sitting there. It's like ching, library ching. So this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool experience, being able to meet with somebody, pull out my iPad, and as they're describing the logo that they're wanting designed, or the video that they want shot, or whatever. Sometimes I will try to encourage people to, like, oh, hey, do you need to get like some coffee or something, or just to be able to step away for a little bit, just to sketch something out and have something that's not necessarily like a
Not
really
the polished one,
right?
because you don't want them to think that the whole.
Right. It's like, hey, I have some clip art that will fit
I
this
will
perfectly.
give you $1 for that. Yeah.
It's like,
No,
wow.
I will definitely pay for your coffee. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much. It's like, no.
Sometimes what I'll do too is I'll just bring a notebook with me and kind of sketch out the initial idea, and then Adobe has a great app if you have a Creative Cloud subscription. It's called Adobe Shape, and basically what you can do is you can take a picture of anything in your environment, and it will automatically turn it into a vector file that you can then save to your Illustrator or whatever, and then blow up on T-shirts and banners and any number of different things. There's so many things that you can do with it. And so one of the things that I did with a logo client recently, he has a medical supply office out in, I think, Silverton or something, and I just basically hand drew what I thought the logo should look like. And it was a little shaky because obviously, unless you're using a protractor or something. And so I took the picture, but Adobe Shape, because it kind of detects those edges in the photo, it got rid of the shakiness and made like a really nice looking vector file.
Wow.
And so that was...
that's also an iPad thing.
It's also an
I thought that was desktop when you're...
Oh, no.
Wow. Awesome.
So Adobe has a whole suite of mobile apps now that basically what happens is you log into your account and you log into your Creative Cloud account on your PC or your Mac.
Oh, so that's why this is free, is because you have the paid service that it has to work with. Okay.
Yeah.
All
And so there are some of them that you can use without a paid account, but you just don't get all the functionality.
You can't export it or something like
you
that.
can't
Just take screen grabs.
Exactly. So there's ways around it, but it's most people wouldn't be aware of those.
And actually, I love those because it lets you experience it somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you are a professional that is making money off this, of course you're going to pay for it.
Right.
It's just not worth the cheesiness of doing workarounds when you could get, whatever it costs. It's worth it to get that extra, scalable vectors versus, pixels that you captured.
So then, because what I would usually do is I would take the screen grab and then upload it to my Dropbox folder on the iPad, then open up Dropbox on my computer, get the screen grab, bring it into Illustrator, change it into a vector there.
Right.
So I still was doing it, but it was so tedious. Now, because I have a subscription, there's a button within the app where you can hit send to Illustrator, and even if the app is closed on your computer, it'll open up and then open that file immediately.
Wow.
And it's a little creepy.
That's a little creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's real creepy. But the efficiency factor skyrockets. I mean, it saves so much time. And so we exchange our freedoms for time.
Is this after you've installed the Adobe Remote Access tool?
Yeah, exactly. You install that, and then I got an email from Ed Snowden. He's like, hey, don't install that. But I'm like, but look how much faster you can work, Ed.
Yeah. Rats, by the way, are what, all sorts of creepers secretly install on other... If you secretly installed on someone else's computer, it's a rat, a remote access tool.
Okay.
If you do it on purpose as a professional service or whatever, it's like, network access tools or something like that. Yeah.
It's the names have changed, but they're still spying on you.
Remain.
Yeah. But I figured...
The names were changed to protect the guilty.
Exactly.
Right, so this is excellent stuff. All right.
That's a good one. There's another one that they have called Adobe Color. Some of these are apps that are available for pretty much anybody, even if you don't have the Creative Cloud subscription. Adobe Color is an app that basically lets you move your camera around in a room or wherever you are, and it will pick out, I think, the top 5 colors and basically make a color scheme for you that then you can send and save to Illustrator and Photoshop and all that other stuff. Same way, very instantaneous, where it's like, you save this color palette. Yeah, that's it.
This one? Okay.
So you save your color.
Of course, by Adobe Color CC Capture Color.
Yeah, and then Photoshop Sketch is another one. Adobe Brush. This one's super cool because you can literally make your own brushes to use in Photoshop and Illustrator.
Okay, and same way you export them through the cloud or whatever, it gets to your computer and it's there.
And so you could draw a line and an arrow on a piece of paper, take a picture, and then say, this is the top of the arrow, this is the back of the arrow, and here's how thick I want it to be. And then you can save it and then use it as a digital vector. And
this is like the new second screen.
Yeah, it's like sorcery.
Right? I mean, you have a touch peripheral for your desktop computer.
Exactly.
So the desktop computer is not out of the picture for you.
No, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because for about 3 years or so after I got my first iPad, before I upgraded to the 128 gig, for about 3 years I made it a point to, as much as possible, not work on my desktop computer.
Just to increase your versatility with a tool that could go with you into the field and last for 10 hours and all that stuff. Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where, my computer, when I turn it on, the temperature in my office goes up about 5 or 10 degrees. Because I need to get better cooling in it and probably just get a new computer.
And it's mad.
Yeah.
It's a little upset.
Yeah. And so, especially with that heat wave, we went and bought an air conditioner to make sure my computer didn't blow up. But with the iPad, whenever I had jobs that required like printing and things like that, obviously at least back then, a lot of the apps that were available, there weren't very many vector ones. And so I would still have to use my PC. But at this point, the iPad is my primary way of designing, and the PC is a kind of an auxiliary thing that I use just because it's more powerful at this point. But I can see the farther that we get away from being dependent on screens and desktop PCs, and I don't know if you've seen much about the HoloLens and stuff.
I was just thinking about that, man. It's like it was brilliant for Microsoft to buy Minecraft.
Oh yeah,
because that was just like, as soon as I see a demo, it's like, okay, there's your demo, your proof of concept demo.
Yep. They sold it, man.
It has everything you need to show all the features, and they're sending a couple up to the International Space Station.
Really?
Yes, they have a Project Sidekick, and they have 2 forms of operation. One is as a offline reference tool, where they can just kind of go through the manual. Essentially, it's a manual for everything that you can have in your vision there.
Right.
But the other one, it connects to Skype, also bought by Microsoft.
Right. And
you can work in conjunction with a technician on the ground, and they can draw in the environment.
Oh my goodness!
I know, right?
Shut up and take my money.
So, yeah, I was thinking, but when just given the explosion of functionality of having this that you can walk around with, when you can wear something augmented.
Yeah.
Good grief.
I'm looking
in your pocket or whatever, it doesn't matter.
I'm looking forward to when it's not this obtuse headset thing.
Yeah.
And I've seen some pretty cool stuff where, I think it was Tony Robbins. He just recently did a conference in Australia as a hologram.
Nice.
And the only video of it is a dude's cell phone, like from the back, and they're just projecting him from Florida into Australia, and they sold out the conference like he was actually there, and he could see them and they could see him, but he wasn't there.
This is, of course, as many things like this, huge in Japan.
Oh, really?
Oh, they have. Okay. They actually have virtual media stars. Like, they have created completely CG characters doing live concerts.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I know. I
saw Tupac.
The HoloLens, I was a little more unambiguous, but this was like, really?
Well, I saw when they did the thing with Tupac and also the thing with Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean,
right,
you saw people in the audience who
Yeah.
knew them, and they're just like, the look on their face is kind of, you
Yeah.
don't know how to process this. It's really cool.
But could you have not use my friend? You know?
Yeah, and they were saying that it's like one major company that's doing it, which is always a concern. But they're doing something where I guess they analyze like the voice patterns and things like that, so they can basically make these holograms say something with the voice, even if the
Right.
person's never actually said it.
Wow.
Which brings out all kinds of what could possibly go wrong.
Yeah. Well, at least the hair won't get caught fire this time.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
exactly.
what soft drink to drink. So, well, yeah, and they are kind of also appropriating the name hologram. It's not a hologram, you know.
Okay.
But a hologram is a recreation of a wavefront of light.
Okay.
And in with lasers, they have a reference beam that's just like shining directly on the target surface, like a glass pane that's exposed, and then they have a separate beam that is diverted from that, bounces off the subject, interacts with the original beam, and creates an interference pattern. And when you shine a laser on that interference pattern in the glass pane, you actually recreate the light wavefront that hit that panel in the first place. So you're getting the actual wavefront. And a friend of mine, for his master's thesis in college, what he did was he computer rendered what a wavefront interference pattern would be. It's just like a whole bunch of very fine lines of light and dark.
Mm-hmm.
And photo reduced it using a copy machine, so it was at the right scale.
Right.
You know, because the printer couldn't go that fine. And did it onto a transparency and hit it with a laser, and boom, popped out like cubes and spheres that were holograms.
Wow.
Where there was actually no original.
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
yeah, to me, that's what a hologram technology would be, is if you had,
Right.
like, say, a liquid crystal display doing a similar trick,
Mm-hmm.
where you're computer generating the interference patterns, shining a laser on it, you get a hologram.
Well, we should kickstart with that, definitely. 'Cause
And maybe, I don't know,
I'd be
maybe
into it.
maybe that's what they're doing.
Mhm.
As far as all the occurrences of holograms, starting with HoloLens,
Right.
is them using some other technology to represent something and project it into space.
Right.
Like, we've got a fine mesh and we're just like got a standard projector and we're projecting onto it.
Yeah.
It's like but it looks neat.
Yeah.
And then you put a camera from the point of view, behind the point of view of this mesh, pointed back at the audience, and then your remote subject is looking through that, and so he can
Right.
act like, whatever.
They're actually there,
Yeah,
but they're not.
yeah.
Yeah.
And some variations on, like, they had those old cards where if you'd like tilt them slightly and you'd see two different pictures.
Mhm.
So you've got that kind of action going too, where you can create different images based on, like, I think it's called lenticular or something like that, where you put kind of like a glass prism
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah.
lines.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And so, the function of those is if the angle changes slightly, then the part of the surface underneath that you're seeing changes.
Right.
So it's really lines of picture A alternating with lines of picture B, and just like that's how which one you see by the angle. So those kinds of technology would let you actually see different things from different angles.
Right. Which
Yeah, wild.
I
And
don't,
then there's all the other stuff with polarized lenses and polarized projectors. So the left image is hitting with
right.
this thing. So
There's a lot of cool, crazy stuff going on that you should all look into.
yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, telepresence, right? Where you got the little Segway sticks with an iPad at the top or
Yep.
something, right? And it's like, I'm walking around the factory. It's like, you're
Right.
looking like a jackass, but okay, fine.
Exactly.
It's like, hi, boss.
They move so slow right now too. It's like this
Yeah.
really clunky thing that we'll look back and be like, remember when that was so stupid and
Yeah.
dumb, and now it's really cool. Yeah. Pretty much like everything we use right now. So
Yeah, we are right on the precipice where the stuff we're using now is the stuff that was sci-fi
Right.
not too long ago. I mean, we really started to hit that hardcore when the smartphones came out, I think.
yeah.
As soon as you had basically a tricorder in your pocket, communicator tricorder,
Yep.
maybe a phaser if you had the taser adapter.
Exactly. We were at an estate sale today, and they had this old 8-track record and cassette players, like all in one is this big thing. And
all in one, the convenience.
Right, I know. It's this massive thing too.
It's like all obsolete technologies rolled together.
Right, and then right next to it, they had this massive, gorgeous bookshelf and this huge box of records and a big box of 8-tracks and a big box of cassette tapes. And I was just sitting there, and my wife is looking through some of it, and she's talking with the lady who's working there, and I'm like, this is unreal. And she says, what? I'm like, literally all of this fits in my pocket now. Like every bit of it. And I can do so much more, and it's amazing. But it's like it happens so fast, but it's slow enough that we just kind of take it for granted. And
yeah, it's a sci-fi version of boiling the frog. It's just like we've projected into the future so slowly that it just all seems normal. I'm convinced that if, like phasers and transporters and space travel came out, tomorrow, like 5 years from now, we'd all be like, oh yeah, it's ho-hum.
Yeah,
I can't believe it takes us a whole week to get to Mars. I mean,
I know.
How tedious.
It's like, I know it only takes a month and a half to terraform Venus, but my goodness, we should already be into a new solar system. I've got a meeting on the other end of the solar system, and those TPS reports need to be filled out.
They're not going to fill themselves out.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, and I try to pay attention to stuff like that because I don't want to forget where we came from. You know what I mean? I want to
remember my roots in the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Carving a wheel
and
with my stone axe.
Just remember how unfortunate
that was Minecraft.
Us. Yeah. It was another Minecraft. But yeah, it's we live in amazing times, and I try to pay no attention to all the drama in the news and all the fear mongers and stuff, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of stuff that's tried to kill off the human race, and we're still here. So I guess we'll just take it a step at a time. That's how I look at it.
And in the spirit of that optimism, Startup Salem.
Startup Salem. All right. So
now this is, look, you're in the shower or
yeah, it was basically I was up late, and I had been talking with a number of people throughout town, and
you came from Silicon Valley.
Yes,
basically.
Yeah,
so
came from
you kind of
Silicon
soaked
Valley.
in that for what, 5 years?
Yeah, it was about 5 years, and just watching. Honestly, it's like magic. Like, you put total strangers in a room who all have passion and vision for doing something amazing. They might not even know what.
Boom, company product.
Yeah, and it's incredible because we did something called Startup Portland, where I went with I think it was like between 70 and 100 some people. It was in downtown Portland a few months ago, and the concept is basically you put a bunch of people together, and you have 72 hours to build what they call an MVP, a minimum viable product, whether that's a company, a website, a product, whatever. And so the first night, everybody stands up, and it's like a open mic. If you have an idea for a business, you can pitch it, and then at the end, we'll all vote on these ideas, and the people who have the most, I think it was like the top 5, the most votes on, yes, I want to work on this idea. Great, do it, launch it.
Assemble around those ideas.
Exactly. And so by Saturday morning, we had our teams formed, and we had actually worked on this concept for a basically like a combination of an Etch-a-Sketch, a Kindle, and a digital photo frame.
Oh, iPad.
Kind of, but it's
simplified.
But it's more geared towards kind of like the older crowd that doesn't want to deal
Say
with...
it again. It's an Etch-a-Sketch.
An Etch-a-Sketch, because there's only one, at least the prototype only could take one picture, because it's the e-ink. It was an e-ink display like the Kindle, so it doesn't consume a lot of power.
Nice.
And so it doesn't really have to be charged, and even if the power goes out on it, the screen stays the same. Basically, we 3D printed a working prototype. We ordered the parts, got them shipped quick, and
like, here's an e-ink screen.
Yep.
With 3D print a case for it.
Right, and we had guys soldering things. And
we'll have like a little microcontroller of some sort to drive it, and boom.
Right, and so we had everybody literally like
Holy
soldering
smokes.
the whole thing there.
Wow.
It was so intense, so much fun though. And by the end of Saturday, no, I think it was Sunday morning, we were on the phone with someone they said they liked the idea and that they would go forward with it if we finish it. We actually kind of like
Or you sent it straight
set
to
up a
them?
meeting. Yeah, it was. Like
Okay, all
it was
right.
a phone call, like a conference call.
Okay.
And so basically.
Oh, so you literally, this was the pitch. It wasn't this, they came
yeah.
across it and told, it's like,
No.
actually, we really liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
kind of like one of the guys
Wow, so who
had
set
known
that up?
somebody.
Okay.
But he.
One of the guys in the startup group.
Yeah.
It wasn't a function of the conference organizers.
It
It was
was
just somebody
our
in the
group.
group that did that.
Yeah,
Nice.
it was our group that was kind of like,
Nice.
oh, I know someone we can call, and so we called.
Eventually got to pitch us anyway. We could just do that.
Yeah, and so we did, and it was awesome. And so basically, we got to a point where it's like we could literally take the thing out on the street and show people, and like, hey, would you buy this? Would you buy this kind of thing? And so it was just a really cool experience. I mean, obviously, the product and was not polished, and neither was
No.
the video, but it was like
That it existed at all.
you're under, yeah, it's like it didn't exist, and then 3 days later it's
does.
a thing. So that experience, and it wasn't just us, there was, I think, 5 or 6 other teams that launched websites and coded them and designed them and had all of this done in like 3 days. Actually 2 days, because the first night is like meet and greet
Yeah.
and get the idea.
And that's not Silicon Valley. That's Portland, Oregon.
That was in Portland. And so I'm like,
hey,
I know these guys. There's nothing like that here. And so basically, when I was in school, in college, back in Pittsburgh, I helped start a chapter of my fraternity because we didn't like the frat guys on campus.
Yeah.
We wanted a group of guys that could hang out and do stuff together.
The unfrat.
Exactly. And so we basically built it from the ground up just by facilitating a place where people could come. So it's kind of like Field of Dreams style.
Yeah,
like
you build it, they'll come. All right.
And so I'm on staff as an advisor over at the Small Business Development Center here in Salem. If you're a business owner and you don't know about it, it's free business advice.
Yeah,
Go. It's
excellent.
amazing. Great people.
Beautiful facility, good people.
Right.
Yeah.
And if, I mean, it was just one of those moments where I was kind of like, oh, well, I'm on staff here, and so I can like use the facilities and whatever. So it's kind of like, I wonder if we could use this building as a place for people to just kind of meet who have business ideas, or they're techies or coders or designers, whatever. I mean, I'm just kind of opening it up
They
to.
kind of try to do that in general anyway, but this would be more focusing at kind of more of a tech experience.
Right. This is
and not around a
focused-
class.
Right. Yeah, this wouldn't be a class. This would be more of like an informal meetup. And so the flyer that I made at like 3 a.m, it was just, Startup
Yeah.
Salem, follow us, we're going places.
Yeah.
And then we were.
Oh, people started liking the hell out of it.
It was
Like,
crazy.
Yeah.
It was like, I just
Really,
literally
man?
just made this
Really?
up off the top of my head. And look, people
On
are
my
here.
iPad.
Yeah, on the iPad.
I started a movement on my iPad.
So it says, we are a community of builders, tinkerers, engineers, designers, hackers, coders, geeks, gamers, developers, film and audio nerds, entrepreneurs, event planners, leaders, out-of-the-box thinkers, futurists, and philanthropists, all working together in beautiful Salem, Oregon. And so the concept is simply that. I want to bring people together and watch magic happen and facilitate it and help kind of be a resource for people who maybe don't know where to go next and they don't know how to get their idea off the ground. Because honestly, it might be as simple as having a coffee or a beer with somebody that you've never met before who has a similar passion. It's like, oh, well, we could do that. And then you've got a business idea. That's how Angry Birds even happened.
Yeah.
So
I've heard of that.
So
It's a nice little enterprise.
it's a
they got going.
small, very small app.
Yeah.
only-
So this is. We have the people in
Oh,
Salem.
yeah.
We don't have really the facilities or organizations for people to rally around. So, I mean, 67% of the job is done just saying, planting the flag and saying, "Here's Startup Salem. Join the group." It's like,
Yeah, I think
So-
that the last I looked, there was between 60 and 70 people that had liked the thing on Facebook already, and I've not really even done much about it. I put up a simple website, so if you go to startupsalem.co or .com or .net or .org, because I bought all of them, because I'm
did you now?
squatting now, because it's
Okay.
like I've got
All
the
right.
name down. So if you go there, you can sign up for the email list just to stay notified whenever we get everything organized. But I did decide on a date for the first meetup. So this is the first that I'm announcing it publicly, but it's going to be on, I'm pretty sure, August 27th.
August 27th.
From 7, it's a Thursday, from 7 to 9 p.m.
location?
over at the Small Business Development
Of
Center.
course.
So that's 626 High Street Northeast, I think, in Salem.
We'll put a picture on the site.
Okay.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's just, honestly, at this point, I don't know exactly what's going to happen.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So that's the thing, though. I mean, as an
nothing. Could be Angry Birds. You don't know.
Yeah, we could. I mean, there could be pretzels and chips, or we could, I don't know, play the limbo or something. Isn't that what kids do these days?
Yeah, right. Maybe over at the BUTT pharmacy they do. But
yeah, exactly.
We were having a little fun with the green screen before we got started.
There's if you haven't checked it out, there's a YouTube channel called by two guys named Rhett and Link, and they have a video on YouTube called Butt Drugs, BUTTDRUGS, and that's all I'm going to say. So you should check it out. It's really funny, and you can watch it.
Well, it was a real ad. Right?
Yeah, it's an actual ad. It was an actual ad.
And it was part of how they actually got their start. So
yes, so
and that was just two guys deciding to, they're being creative and, just with a lot of confidence coming to local business owners and saying, we want to do something for you, and the only thing is, we have complete creative control.
Right. And they ended up...
go thumbs up or thumbs down, but that's it. You can't tell us anything about what's going to be in it.
And they ended up doing that and getting this company on The Ellen Show because the video was so out of the box and so funny and creative, but now, no pun intended, they're internationally known because two guys decided to get some cameras out and have a good time.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the impetus behind Startup Salem is I've watched incredible things happen whenever passionate people get together and say, you know what, I'm tired of this 9-to-5 thing, and it might take me a while to get to a point where I'm self-sustaining, but I want to work on something. I want to build something. I'm passionate about making things. And so on that note, there's a Maker Faire coming up in August. So that's going to be over at the Gilbert House. Something.
AC Gilbert House,
So we'll be over there and making like custom posters and canvases and designs. So like if people have a favorite quote or something that they would like that they could hang up in their house or frame or whatever, we can make those right there on the spot for them on the iPad. And then we do our printing through Costco because they drop ship, and so I can basically make it on my iPad and order it right there. And
it's like put in your address, it'll be there in a couple days.
So we're doing that, and then something else we're working on. It's not 100% set yet, but I would like to go to the comic convention, and we're going to, if we end up going there, we're going to be there basically making people look even more like superheroes, because I'm going to have a green screen set up, and we're going to basically take pictures of people and all their comic gear, and then basically you're adding lens flares and explosions and things in the background.
Beams and
and so it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of like Caricatures 2.0.
Nice.
So that's tentatively what I'm calling it. TM registered. Not yet, but
no R.
Patent pending.
No R.
Yeah.
Just the TM.
Just the TM. Patent pending. I think. Is that all? Did I cover my butt with all the legal stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We're good.
Yes. All right.
So lots
Ryan,
going on. But,
thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. Things are popping in Salem.
Startupsalem.com and reformationdesigns.com, and come down to CCTV and make your own movies and films and stuff, and KMUZ radio.
Yep. CCTV Salem, Google that, and you'll see the whole drill. They have some really magnificent studios, very underused. So
yeah, it's all here, guys.
It's all here. All right, you're listening to Northwest Tech Show. I'm Dave Duncan. That was Ryan Rhoades in a pre-recorded interview we did a couple of days ago, and I am here live in the studio right now with Nate Darnell. How you doing, sir?
Howdy. Doing great today.
All righty. So we'll have New Health Radio coming up in a little bit, but first let's just talk a little bit more about the Startup Salem and the kind of the energy around getting people together around a project. I've seen similar things like we had the 48-hour film project that I worked with for a little bit when I was learning video, and that was just they'd give you a prop, a concept, and a character, and you had 48 hours to write, shoot, edit, and deliver, a little a short film, like a 10-minute short film on that subject. And I was kind of had a little bit of callback to that when he was talking about how amazing it was just to get a bunch of people together in a room and walk out, out of the weekend with a product that maybe you've already pitched. So I deleted the name of the company that he pitched it to, but it was a big name company, and that was, they had a working product pitched to a major brand name over the weekend. That was just, that's good stuff.
So share with me kind of the fundamental concept here. I mean, do we actually have a focus group? I mean,
how do you pick something to work on? How the project come together? Is that it? Well,
I guess where my mind space is, if you will, is when you're working with other individuals that are not legally tied to you, there's no non-disclosure agreement, you're doing product development. I understand getting together with a group of like-minded people to throw mud on the wall and just create something for the sake of giggles. There's another whole issue around intellectual property, patent and trademark protection.
Sure.
And so that's where the lines, I'm not truly clear on how all of that stuff shakes out.
Well, there is now I'm not a lawyer and I've not been to one of these, but when I did read something on these a couple of years ago, and best I recall, there are agreements you make when you come to participate at a startup event. So you will you're entering into a partnership, and you're going to give, actually, as I recall, you give a certain percentage to the event, to the event organizers for having brought everyone together, and that help funds it, going forward.
So I think this is where my line of questioning is actually going. Is the startup actually to take a product from the drawing board to concept and to actually pitch it as a viable product for a potentially viable company, or is it to get a group of like-minded people together and just have fun hashing things out? And those are two entirely different, although there's overlap, there's two entirely different end games. And as a result of that,
I think there's one with the possibility of the other. I mean, this is obviously not an automatic success. You get your inflatable bathtub camera or something, and it's just not a market for it. That's not the kind of selfie we're interested in.
Right.
And that's that goes nowhere. But you went through the process with some people. If nothing else, you walk away from the experience a little less gun shy, a little less nervous about entering into a business and developing a product. You've thrown something up against the wall and it didn't stick, and you're still alive.
Yeah.
You failed and you didn't die. So I
see a different avenue for this in that, and the gentleman's name that you interviewed,
Ryan Rhoades.
Ryan Rhoades. He mentioned that he has a position over at
like an advisor at the Small Business Development Center.
There you go. And
associated with Chemeketa. Yeah.
Okay. One of the challenges that most business development centers have is that they tend to be a little bit behind the curve.
Yeah.
And that's because they're generally approaching it from an academic or an existing standards kind of approach. Yeah. And when you do a modern day business, yes, you need a business plan, but you also have to understand that 30 years ago when you wrote a business plan, generally speaking, technology wasn't so disruptive that the business wouldn't fly for at least 5 or 6 years before it got disrupted by something else.
Yeah.
Now we have disruption happening on a 6-month cycle or faster. I
just saw recently an article about, companies, you need to start thinking about how to disrupt yourselves before someone else does it.
Yes. And that in that way you have this constant level of aggression. And that's not something that you can easily train. People either have that aggressiveness or they don't. There are some that learn it, but by and large, it's one or the other. And so I guess where I'm seeing how this could possibly fit together in Salem's culture, which is notoriously conservative.
Yes.
Is that
it's wanted for $500 for extreme conservatism. Yeah.
I mean, I think we really do need an incubator. We need to find a pathway where young people whether or not they're high schoolers or in their early 20s, and have that aggressiveness gene, if you will, or that freedom gene to go do something. That there is a cadre of individuals like you and I that, even though we have different lives and do different things, we have enough of a working relationship to know what our particular skill sets are and can work together to pull things off, just like the radio shows that we've been doing for several years.
Yes.
And once you're involved in that kind of framework, you kind of get a feeling for the compatible personalities, what their skill sets are, and if you do want to launch something, who knows about what, and can we get them all in a room, over the weekend, put some stuff on the board, because you've worked with them long enough to know that they have integrity, and we're going to share some things tonight that basically they don't leave this room, and this is what we want to do. Is this something that you'd like to be part of? Yeah. That's where I see this fitting together. But you've got to develop that camaraderie first, and you have to kind of develop those working relationships. And you never do that unless you get kind of like a hobby group going first.
Well, I should clarify at this point that the Startup Salem was not pitched as a startup weekend template. It's kind of inspired by that, but I heard him use the phrase meetup. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's definitely, at least initially, kind of not super agenda driven. It's just really about getting people together around that kind of concept. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and there's been several groups that have been popping up. I just came across the the Salem Internet of Things meetup on meetup.com. That one of my co-founders in Microportal Electronics Club, he went to their meeting last week. And apparently that's a weekly thing. They're holding it out at the Senior Center, 50 Plus Center.
Yes.
Really nice facility. And they're doing that at 6:30 on Wednesdays. So
now, do we get carded when we go in the door? Do we have to be?
Yeah, no, you don't have to be 50 plus. So I actually did go over there a few years ago with my dad, and we picked up a nice, like $3 lunch. It was a good lunch, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they've got a wood shop and all kinds of other stuff over there.
Yeah, they got a computer lab. They got this just magnificent fireplace in the center when you first come in. So really, really nice. This is the new building. If you went to it a few years ago, this is a different place. When it was the Salem Senior Center, I think. Now, when they went to 50 Plus Center,
it's been rejuvenated.
It's been rejuvenated. It's now that it's like, well, seniors is a little bit of a loaded word. So 50 plus, it's like, well, shoot, 50 is the new 30. So
right.
So yeah, looks like they're very into activities. So unfortunately, we didn't get much of a chance to participate out there, but I visited it and it was nice. So so every Wednesday 6:30. Maybe drop in and ask them if there's a Internet of Things group hanging around, because that would be a great thing to participate in. We have, besides the actual first Salem Startup Meetup, which is August 27th, which is a Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m. at the Small Business Development Center. There's also the Maker Faire over at AC Gilbert House on Saturday, August 8th that's coming up. And he's planning on being there. He's talking about, he's going to instantly generate prints and have them drop shipped, which is kind of a nice proof of concept. This is what you can do. You can go from designing something right there on the spot, and it's going to get delivered to you. That's something new in most people's experience, to have something custom done that way. Microportal will also be there, and we got a nice little write-up on their page. That's at makerfairsalem.com for more details on that. That's Maker, M-A-K-E-R, Faire in the Old English style, F-A-I-R-E, Salem, all run together.com. So check that out. We also have the Microportal meetings. And let's see, the next one is coming up. Those are on Tuesdays at the Broadway Coffee House. And the next one's going to be July 28th. So that's the fourth Tuesday of every month, 6:30 p.m. So that's another thing you can go to in Salem. And, look up Ubuntu group. They meet
weekly on Fridays at the coffee house as well. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's 5 or 6 or something. And they got flyers up on the bulletin board at, let's see, I guess it's, what was that, 1300 Broadway comes to mind, but it's the Broadway Coffee House across from the Salem Cinema on Broadway. So, yeah, local stuff going on. And I'm kind of, as you might have been able to tell from that, I mean, we kind of were jumping around and doing green screen stuff before the interview, so we were kind of hyped up, and but it was Ryan that inspired me to get my current iPad because.
Oh, did you get a new one?
Yeah, I've been kind of keeping that low key. I've had it for about a month and a half now.
Yeah, you haven't spilled the beans.
I was just wondering if anyone would notice. Yeah. And even when I did the Telltale sitting them side by side, no one really noticed. So
right. Well, they look very similar in all honesty.
Yeah, they do. I got the same angle going on them. I got the same brand of keyboard. But like you said, once you really kind of put it together, how cheap the apps are, how much power and flexibility you get from being able to string together the output of a whole bunch of cheap apps into something that would take you hours or days to do on a desktop computer at a much higher quality level, of course, but it would cost you hours, days of labor. Even once you learn the programs, which are usually pretty hard to get into, and then maybe you got a $500, $900 program that you're using on top of that. So
yeah, I think the biggest challenge moving forward is stability. How do you, in the face of just enormous innovation and disruption, how do you maintain a steady line?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to, even within your workspace, because if you don't update your software constantly, you're gonna get croaked from all the malicious influences out there, because everything comes out as a beta, and you have to take the updates or you're gonna have trouble.
Or you could just join the BSD community.
Or you. All right. Okay. No. That's legitimate. But really, what you're doing there is you're opting out of the cutting edge, in exchange for something just rock solid. You can rely on it. And you know what? If I was designing my own pacemaker, I'd be doing it on BSD for sure. I wouldn't be having an iPhone drive that stuff.
I think what it boils down to is, what are your core functions? I mean, there's a place for innovation, and obviously BSD doesn't easily play with things like Flash and some of the multimedia stuff. But in terms of an information platform for sending and receiving emails, for putting servers in place, for storing data, for just basic online work, it's really rock solid, really reliable. And frankly speaking, if the vast majority of your job responsibilities is sending correspondence and interacting through correspondence, do you really want to spend most of your time doing software updates? No, it's disruptive. And it's unnecessary. Yeah. So where's that sweet spot? And while we're
it does depend. It does depend. Okay, go ahead with your thought there.
Oh, I on Facebook, I actually I referenced you in a post I made the other day with those Jeep Cherokees that are now being hacked.
Yeah.
And see, I talked about this years ago. Nobody wants to. Nate's just a conspiracy theorist.
No, dude, I was right there with you. I mean, the edge was taken slightly off by the fact you had to tie into the was a JTAG port.
I didn't even have time to read it.
Anyway, there's a standard computer port on all modern cars that lets you tie in for diagnostic purposes, etc., into the car's electrical bus, and across what they were calling the CAN or CAN or something. What was that? The
CAN bus.
The CAN bus. That was it. Yeah. The CAN bus is this audio, or it's this networking standard that all the internals of the modern car systems.
It's the new wiring standard that intertwines everything in the car.
Yeah, and the basic lesson, I guess, that was lost on people was that you just cannot wire a radio into these internal, critical life depending functions of your car. You just can't.
Now for the listeners, this was an experiment, or even real time, that was perpetrated against a brand new Jeep Cherokee where the brakes were deactivated.
Yeah, this is the Wired article.
Okay.
Yeah. No, all sorts of things. It was, the radio was cranked up, the air conditioner was blasting, They dropped the transmission into a weird gear, so
Yeah.
and then they stalled the engine.
And this was all remotely controlled while
This is
someone was
all-
driving it.
Yeah, and this isn't. We're not even talking Wi-Fi remotely. We're talking. There was a cellular link in this thing called Uconnect that connects this Jeep. And again, not to pick on the Jeep, they picked on the car maker because they sent out they had a government grant to pick up some cars and start doing security research on them. And one of their first steps was they sent out a survey to all the different car makers to kind of, ask them some security-based questions on, what practices do you do for this, or do you follow this practice? And they went, okay, well, this one's the weakest one, so let's start there. And then they got down to, okay, let's try the Jeep, because they kind of like the answers on that.
Yeah.
And
So basically, just to be clear, because I know we've got like 2 minutes left, that new system, which is federally mandated, is called telematics. All cars have to have wireless accessibility, and generally it's through a cellular connection. And that's so the fundamental concept was that you could reach an operator through like a 911 type of system if you were in an emergency. It was OnStar was really the predecessor to all these things, and it was a luxury. Now it's a government mandate. But by making all these cars now wirelessly accessible, so hackers now can use that link to now command and control the vehicle if they're savvy enough. And that was perpetrated on that Jeep.
yeah, and the key to this one was they thought that, okay, presumably, because what they did is they hacked the firmware on the entertainment system. That was step one. So they took like 6 months reverse engineering how the entertainment system worked so they could do an update to it. And then once they did that, then they had access to everything on the CAN bus. So I assume that means that they put in the firmware essentially a bridge between the cellular network link and the internal bus. And at that point, they could read and send any signals that the car was capable of.
Well, the bus
making.
operates off of IP.
Yeah, but I mean the wires, they're physically. I would assume. I mean, you'd have to be a lunatic to run the cellular wires directly onto the CAN bus and leave each part of the car to fend for itself. I don't believe even the most retarded engineer would do that. But they would do things like, oh, well, we'll run it here, and then we'll have a firewall, and then we'll do this, and it'll only let these signals through. Like if we want to do the service of telling how your oil is doing, we'll report that to the entertainment system, and the entertainment system will use the cellular link to upload it. And as soon as they make that step, it's like, okay, well, now you've got a bridge. Now you've got a bridge. It's like, now what is the security on tampering with that? Even without updating the firmware, what can you trick it into doing? And that's not the way people think. They put security on afterwards, even now. And the thing was, they could do a scan of the IP space that they knew that the Sprint network on this one, not Sprint's fault, by the way. I mean, the transceiver link is just the transceiver link. The problem is when it gets to its destination, it's allowed to interact with parts it shouldn't. But they were also all over the country. They were seeing GPS locations and the make and model of car.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here's someone driving around in the desert. Oh, here's one. And even the guys who did the hack, they were doing this in front of the reporter, and they were like, after they had a few dozen, they're like, we don't want to do this. We don't want to do this anymore. Because I don't think they wanted to be accused of, did you map out where every single person in the United States was, and did you sell that real time data to somebody?
Right.
Good grief. You could, the kind of mischief you could do, you could say, okay, Anonymous has declared downtown Portland to be a no-go zone. If you drive there, if we detect your GPS there, we will shut down your car.
You could just create an absolute nightmare. But that's why I roll old school. I drive the old cars that are loyal to me. They cannot trade sides.
You gotta, yeah. You and me, just you and the guy with his foot on the gas pedal. That's
right.
My foot is my authorization. All right, with that, we've done it again. Spent an hour with Dave, Nate, and Ryan talking about tech and how we can use it to improve our lives a lot if we start rolling our own startups, and how we can sink it a lot if we get into a car that's remote controlled by somebody else. So I hope you'll join us and continue this conversation with us next Wednesday and every Wednesday, noon to 1 on Northwest Tech Show.